Okay, we're going to get started. Today, we're going to be talking about answering a scientific question or how to find and read a scientific paper. Quick about me, I am a third-year medical student to the Tulane School of Medicine. I graduated MIT in 2022 with a BS in biology and science writing. I am a big fan of scientific communication. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, and I also love Shakespeare, as a fun fact. All right, so this is us. We are getting through life the best we can. And we are approached by our PI or mentor or whoever it is that we are helping out. And they say, student, tell me, what are the objective survival rates of a patient with HER2 negative, HR positive breast cancer treated with tamoxifen? Um, this is totally just an example. It could be any other scary research question that you don't know the answer to. Um, you're just like, what? So let's get started. But it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. EndNote, Excel, and the Tulane University libraries, which I'm going to talk about each a little bit further. So EndNote is similar to Zotero if you ever used that. It's just a way to keep track of what papers and other resources you've found. You can download it as an application and then use whatever those things are called that you attach to your browsers to automatically save any paper you're looking at and create a bibliography and use them to make in-text citations on anything you're writing. Will make your life 100% easier. Looks a bit like this. When you have it downloaded on your desktop, you can set whatever type of citation you want. Just learn to use this now. It will make things so much easier when you're very deep into a literature review. Next is Excel. So one of the biggest things I've found when answering a scientific question is that you need to have a system that works for you to help you keep track of what you're learning and what you've looked at when you need to look at. So don't freak out. This is what I use in a rough format. I'll basically just have a paper type, a citation, the date, a copy paste highlight of, whatever I find pertinent. And then, I'll write things out in my words and then add any other notes or figures, et cetera, et cetera. This is going to look different for everybody depending on the way that your brain thinks about things. But I would suggest starting out now, trying to figure out a system that works for you. You might need to tweak it a little bit, but once you have it down, it will be a great way to keep yourself organized. And when people want to look at your literature reviews, like your PI, to check in what you're doing, you can show them that you've been actually doing work. So. And then finally, the Tulane University libraries. These guys will save you. They are amazing. They totally want to be there for you. They know their stuff and they are ready to help. So if you are ever stuck trying to answer a scientific question, trying to get access to a journal, trying to do anything related to your work, they are amazing. I have literally walked in sometimes and asked the weirdest questions, and they are always so eager to help. And they have saved my butt a couple times. So this is a resource you get as going here, and you should use it. Speaking of the Tulane University libraries, they have a collection on their website where I've indicated of their databases. And the database is where you'll find collections of journals relating to a specific topic. I would recommend signing into your Tulane account on the Tulane University Library website and then going here and locating your database. For example, PubMed is for things that are related to medicine and biology. If you go through Tulane Library after signing in, that is how you will get connected with your Tulane Library account or your Tulane account with whatever journal site you're using. And that way you can access journals that are paid for by Tulane. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of walls telling you that you need to pay for things that you don't actually need to pay for because you're a Tulane student. So, for example, for our question here, I've gone to PubMed and I've put in some of the keywords. I don't know if anyone knows like Boolean logic, but basically use and if you want to make sure that what you're looking at contains both the things you put in and use, or if it can be either one of the things that you've put in. So I wanted all of these things, so I put and. Ignore the top. I didn't have time to fix that error, but basically you'll get a bunch of stuff. On the right here, you'll see your papers. On the left, you can select what kind of paper you want. So if you want a research paper, you want a review, et cetera, et cetera. I typically start with reviews because they're the collection of a lot of research. And if there's something more specific you're looking for, they'll often have a collection. They'll have a, cited sources section. Um, All right, so you found your paper and you're like, what is going on? Yeah, whenever I'm starting out on a new project and it's a topic I haven't spent a lot of time on and I'm, looking at the paper that I've found and I don't understand any of the words, I don't understand any of the figures, this is kind of how I feel. But fear not, I have a system. So I'm going to break it down for you what you'll find in a paper. You got your title. This typically reflects the research question. You have authors and affiliations, abstracts, introductions, um, methods. So just to break that down, the abstract summarizes everything and usually like a paragraph. The introduction provides your background information, the rationale for your research project, and then the methods will be the methods. When you're looking at a paper, it can be really tempting to just read the abstract and move on to the findings. But if this is your first time looking at this topic, the introduction is going to help because the introduction provides the background, as I said, and the background will help you understand things. So usually I will spend the most time on the introductions when I'm first starting out on a literature review because they will be telling me the background I need to know and the words I need to know and all that fun stuff. So my introductions are always really annotated by me. Um, Methods, forgot to say, methods, when you're first starting out, you can skim them. I would not spend hours trying to understand every single aspect of the methods, especially if it's wet lab work and you're not used to wet lab work because you're not going to understand anything that's going on there. Um, and that's going to be really confusing. Just give it a skim so you can get the general idea of, okay, we took this drug and we put it in mice and then we looked at what happened, that kind of thing. Results are only going to be the data. There will be no discussion or background or anything like that. It's just going to be straight. This is what we found. Oftentimes you're going to find fun graphs, tables, things that will give you a really quick idea if you look there first. So I often start with the tables and then go to the text just to see if I can figure out the trends on my own. And then your discussion conclusion interprets the results. Just because they say something's true doesn't necessarily mean it is. So this is where you got to use your brain and look at the results, draw your conclusions, see if you agree with their conclusions. And then also look at their implications and discuss for research projects. Excuse me, I dropped my mouse. And then references. This will be helpful if you're doing a literature review because you can use those references as your references and you can see what fun reviews you might have missed in your original search. And then acknowledgements and contact information. So, sorry, I'm going to go back. I just dropped a lot of info on you. I'm going to show you sort of, everyone needs to have a way that they go through papers, methodology that works for them. This is what works for me. So the first thing that we do is you skim. You get the big picture. You read the title, keywords, abstracts, and this will tell you major findings and why they matter. I generally sort of quickly scan the article without taking notes, focusing on headings and subheadings. I did not create this figure, by the way. I found it on Google. Note the publishing date. Once I spent a huge amount of time on a paper, realized it was published 20 years ago and probably didn't matter anymore. So double check that. And then, in your head, note like that whole paragraph, I didn't understand any of that. And I'm going to need to look some things up there. Oops, I forget what I was doing here. Okay, yes, this is your big tool, annotation. Once you've finished skimming, you are going to annotate. Annotating is a lifesaver. I think it's really tempting to just read through a paper and move on, but if you sit down, you actually make notes, you write down words that you didn't know before, then you'll actually have a good understanding of what's going on. This is an example of how I annotate. I'll pick a color for different things. So for red, I'll do basic definitions. For green, I'll do what was the question they were trying to answer. I'll highlight something yellow, why was it important, and blue, how did they answer it? And then with the introduction, I'll go back to basics. What was the independent and dependent variable? I'll try to circle them. If these are terms that you don't know, the independent variable is what they changed, and the dependent variable is what they measure. Sometimes experiments can get really confusing if there's a lot going on, and I just like to see, okay, what are the independent and dependent variables? So here's an example of what an introduction might look like. This is actually from the paper I showed before. Um, I'll write down the definitions when I highlight the ones that I don't know. And I don't know, to me that seems a little bit more doable. And once I've highlighted things, I generally understand it better. Um, just going into a little more detail, I already kind of went through this. Don't hyperanalyze the methods. Sometimes methods will have a fun figure. This looks very scary, but if you just use it as a flowchart and start at the top and go down and see, oh, okay, we had 2,600 people drop out, and then the rest got these drugs, and then more dropped out, and the rest got these drugs, and some were rematched, and all of these things. So it'll just be an easy way to understand the methods if you don't want to skim through all of it. Anyway, that is the end of my talk. This is my email if you have any questions or want to know more about science writing or med school, give me a shout out. Otherwise, thanks so much, and I hope that helped you understand a little bit more about reading a scientific paper.